Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 317 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How's it going today, Richard?
Hey Seth, it is going well. How are you doing?
I am doing well too, and we got some surprising stuff to talk about this week, I would say. But before we get into that, we got another co-host in Krim. How are you today, Grim?
Oh, I am great. Well, let me explain also why really quick. There might be some news over this past week about the set that I've been most hyped for to come out since its announcement. So,
That's a good segue. The main topic of our cast today, actually I think the only non-fish mail topic, is we got very early Strixhaven spoilers. Like, we just had Keldai. We haven't even gotten to Time Spiral Remastered yet. The spoiler season for that starts Thursday. And Wizards on their stream last week were like, hey, let's tell you a bit about Strixhaven, which comes out in a month and a half, 2 months, something like that. So we actually have some Strixhaven cards to talk about. We found out about the colleges of Strixhaven, some interesting new promos coming along with the set. So Strixhaven, main topic of the cast today. New cards, all that stuff, and then answering fish mail because we didn't get to it last week. But before we talk new Magic cards, a quick reminder that our show today is brought to you by Card Conduit. And if you've ever tried to buy list your Magic cards, it's a lot of sorting, a lot of shipping, a lot of typing, not a whole lot of fun. Well, Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your cards. And if you'd like to avoid those hassles and all the time it takes to sell your cards, this new service from the folks at Card Hoarder will sort, grade, and sell your cards for you, and once your shipment is processed, you'll get the proceeds minus their fee. And right now you can get a 10% discount by going over to cardconduit.com/goldfish. So thank you to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And with our sponsorship stuff out of the way, let's talk some new Magic cards. So first off, before we get into the cards, were you guys at all surprised by the timing of this? Like, even when Wizards said, okay, we're going to do a little, Strixhaven thing, I was assuming they were going to, show off some art or something like that. Are you at all surprised that we got literal Strixhaven spoilers last week before even getting to Time Spiral Remastered?
Not really. I think there definitely would have been, a few cards. I mean, okay, I guess you're right. To the level of depth that they explained everything or revealed everything at, okay, I'm a little bit shocked about how much that is, but not at the same time, not really, because with an announcement like that, I think you have to follow it up with some pretty good stuff, right?
And, I think they did follow it up with some pretty good stuff. What about you, Richard? What do you think about the timing of these spoilers? Is it too early since we have a whole nother set to go and we're still 6 weeks or something away from the set releasing and a month away from actual spoiler season?
It's weird. I mean, the earliness doesn't bother me, but the out of orderness with Time Spiral Remastered and the fact that they always release a preview schedule and never follow it. What is the point? Right? No one was expecting this, so we were scrambling to get the previews up on the site and stuff like that. So yeah, but this is classic WotC. In fact, I don't know, maybe they're trying to cover up the BNR or something. Was there bad news they're trying to cover up? Because it seems really weird that they would just drop all this stuff when the next set is indeed Time Spiral Remastered.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is I think the BNR went over really well. I heard Aaron Forsyth talking about it on Twitter, and they were like, internally, we really had no idea if this was going to be a huge freak out and people were going to be really mad or if people were going to be pretty happy. And I think it ended up being the pretty happy version. I think the BNR. So yeah, I don't know that they were actually trying to push something else off of the front page of Reddit or whatever, but I'm not going to complain because I love talking about new Magic cards, and we actually have a pretty interesting cycle to talk about. A mega cycle? I don't even know. We got more commands. So Richard, why don't you guide us through these commands, each of which show off a different color combination, which is also a college at Strixhaven. So Richard, take it away.
All right. So if you have forgotten, Strixhaven, so the official set is Strixhaven School of Mages code STX, releases at the end of April 23rd. And it is Harry Potter, basically. We have the School of Wizardry, and you're gonna go and learn how to sling some spells, I guess. We have 5 colleges, and we learned that the colleges are founded by Elder Dragons, the completion of the Tarkir cycle, so enemy-colored Elder Dragons, and we have the 5 commands. So we'll go over the 5 commands, and the 5 colleges today, and we also have some new showcase cards that they previewed as well. So we'll talk about those. And if you want to see all the cards, you can check them on mtgpreviews.com. So first off, we have Lorehold. This is the Boros school. I don't know what this is. Gryffindor? Who knows? Loreholds are diligent researchers.
Please no.
And are we going to debate the colors of the Harry Potter?
Please no. I don't. No, I don't want it. I don't want them to be compared to Harry Potter.
Dude, this Harry Potter. Okay.
I would say this is more like Scholomance, closer to like the Hearthstone or a Warcraft dungeon.
You wait till we have like He Who Must Not Be Named or whatever card.
I mean, okay, like maybe they do. Maybe they have that, but
okay, I'm gonna see the equipment. If the equipment is like wands and brooms and stuff, then they got no leg to stand. If I see an owl in here, then they got nothing. We'll see how it goes. But back to Lorehold. Diligent researchers and daring adventurers. Okay, their motto is "Leave no stone unturned." And their command is an instant. It's a rare, obviously. 3 red and a white. Lorehold command. Instant, choose 2. Create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible and haste until end of turn. Lorehold command deals 3 damage to any target. Target player gains 3 life. And then the last ability is sacrifice a permanent, then draw 2 cards.
This command's really interesting. I think this command is the command that when they first spoiled it, we were talking about it on stream, and a lot of people said, this is the worst one. Like, I think that card's really bad. I actually think Lorehold command is really scary. For standard, I don't think it's too expensive to show up in older formats. So it's not the next Atarka's command or Cryptic command or whatever that's going to show up in modern. But in standard, I think if you look at this, it's essentially like heroic reinforcements is how I view it. Like, remember how good heroic reinforcements was? Pumping your team, putting 4 power on the battlefield. This is +1 mana. It is 5 instead of 4, but it kind of does the same thing. It pumps your team. It gives them haste, indestructible. It puts what will essentially be a 4/2 haster on the battlefield. And you have all this extra upside where you can lightning helix something if you're about to die, or maybe your opponent's at 3 and you can just close out the game with direct damage. You can sacrifice something that's about to die to removal at instant speed to draw 2 cards because it's an instant. So yeah, I don't think this card is like busted. I don't think it's going to show up in older formats, but I actually think this could be a legitimately strong standard card for like some of those Boros Showdown of the Scalds type decks that have been running around.
I think this is definitely a very good command. Just because of like, first off, it's weird to me that there are even in the year 2021 that there are commands that aren't instant. So, this, like we'll see more as we talk about the other commands. But right now, I think Lorehold command's actually really, really powerful. The ability to also sack a permanent and then draw 2 cards, I think that's going to be a valuable one. And or just being able to go and kind of like lightning helix and put a 3/2 like spirit creature is really good. Also being able to like protect your board, plus maybe burn the opponent. Like, there's a lot here. For 5 mana, I think this is a pretty powerful card for standard.
I think this would be powerful like 4 years ago, but I don't know about now, man. Like, if you want a finisher, I have one for you. It's called Embercleave, and it costs like 3 mana.
That's true.
You're gonna get to 5 mana, and you're just giving your team +1/+0. And so what are the modes? You'll probably make the token and then give your team +1/+0, or you'll +1/+0 and lightning helix someone to death. If you are trying to like draw cards off this, things have probably gone horribly wrong, and the game is probably not going in your favor. So I don't know. It's really expensive in the world of Embercleaves, Uros, Bone Crusher. Like, there's going to be another Uro in the set, right? And like, how is this going to hold up against that? It seems really slow and really fair for what we're trying to do in 2021.
The thing I like about it though is I feel like it's never really going to be bad. Like, I think most common modes, as you mentioned, are going to be make a dork, haste my team, smash you for a bunch of damage, or maybe the lightning helix, depending on your opponent's life total. Like, I think most of the time you're going to use this as an aggro card, but I actually really like that if things do go wrong and your opponent like wraths your board or something, you can give your stuff indestructible at instant speed to save it from a Doomscar, let's say. Or, like, worst case, you can sacrifice something. If your opponent has Extinction Event, you can Lightning Heal this push sacrifice and at least get some value out of your board before all your stuff gets exiled. So I like that. I feel like it's good enough as an aggro card that I could see playing it. And then you get this defensive modes that are just like a bonus, essentially, that sure, you're not playing it so you can play it that way because it means things are going poorly. But being a card that's good when things are going well and okay when things are going poorly, I like the flexibility, I think.
Yep. That's mainly the key reason why I'm also in, like, which kind of seems weird because I think people are pretty down on this command right now, but I think this is exactly why I love this card.
I will say, Grim, this to me looks like a card that will kill you much more than you will kill people with it.
I feel like he's trying to put it in Jeskai control or something. You're like Lightning Helix, draw 2 cards. Is this playable? Make a blocker, a 3/2. Are we blocking? Jeskai control.
Do you think it's worth having the Lightning Helix be split up? That's one of the things that stuck out to me as like, it's 3 damage to something and target player gains 3 life. To me, that feels like, I guess they're probably going for Commander because in the 1 in a million chance we're going to be like, haha, Tomer gained 3 life. We're friends now. Yeah. But like, isn't that just like adding an extra click to Arena for like the tiniest amount of value? Because
I think it's so 99.9%. So it doesn't fizzle.
Yeah,
you still
that's
gain
what I
the
was
life,
thinking.
right?
Like, because you don't want to get the fizzle effect where if somebody just like removes one of the targets, like, well, that feels bad.
What if they Lorehold command in response to your Lorehold command and you don't gain the 3 life you needed, right? So I think that's why they do it. So to make it more intuitive, I don't know. What do new players think? If a spell fizzles, should part of it still resolve or should the whole thing just fizzle? And I think new players would expect
that half of it
the remaining part to still go through.
Yeah.
But then aren't you going to have new players that are accidentally like lightning bolting their face and giving their opponent 3 life or something because there's just going to be a million clicks to resolve it?
I mean, that'll happen.
Well, hopefully Arena will be clear. Choose a player to gain 3 life. When you click your opponent, you'll be, are you sure you want to do this?
The only thing that could make it better is if they do textless promos of these cards.
I
think new players need to experience. They need to experience that on Arena just once. So Wizards, if you're listening, textless commands, please.
We'll get to it, but we have alternate language promos that people might be playing. So, okay. Next up, we have Prismari. This is the Is It College, and their motto is express yourself with the elements. They are the theater kids of Strixhaven, and magic is how they express themselves. So raw creativity and meticulous artistic expressions. Let's see how this command holds up. It's 3 CMC, 1 blue, and a red. Choose 2. Prismari command deals 2 damage to any target. Target player draws 2 cards, then discards 2 cards. Target player creates a treasure token and destroy target artifact.
This is, I think, like if we're talking like maybe standard or something like that, or definitely historic, I think this is probably one of the more powerful commands that out of this cycle. I think this is, if not this might be my favorite one, actually. But that's only because it's like super electrolyze. That's just what it is. It's just super electrolyze with like a few more modes attached to it. I really like it, and it's cheap. And most importantly, instant speed.
Yeah, I think this card is really good. I think this is one of 2 commands that I think have potential back to like Modern. If you look at it, it's kind of a little bit like Kolaghan's command.
Yeah.
Like, maybe a bad Kolaghan's command, but in Modern, you get the 2 damage, blow up an artifact, or instead of making your opponent discard, you can do the loot mode, which is nice. In Standard, I'm really high on it, mostly because blowing up an artifact is really valuable right now. In the world of Embercleaves and Great Henges and Maul the Skyclaves, like, most decks have a really or many decks have a really powerful artifact that they're built around. This is just like incidentally a card that you can play in your main deck that blows up an artifact, because you can play this for the like bad shock / looting mode, and then you just accidentally like have this sideboard card, which is a huge deal in the current meta. So yeah, I think this one's going to be really strong in standard, and I would not be surprised to see like Snapcaster decks in modern taking advantage of it similarly to Kolaghan's Command.
I will say that because it doesn't counter anything, it feels very weird.
Yeah, if there's a drawback, it's Kolaghan's Command. It's almost impossible for it not to be a 2-for-1. Prismari Command, it's often going to be a 2-for-1, but it's not always going to be a 2-for-1. So I think I would rank it slightly below Kolaghan's Command, but I still think it's a solid card.
The looting is nice. I will admit that that's pretty sweet. Does this make Arc-like Phoenix a deck? No, it doesn't. But
it does feel great in the Is It Dragon deck in Standard to me, because if you play against that deck's really powerful. It can actually take advantage of the treasure token, which is like the mode that is probably least exciting, but if you got Dragon to double the mana, it's kind of sweet. But the thing I like about it in the Is It Dragon deck is, if you've ever beat the Is It Dragon deck, one of the ways they lose is they just draw like a million counters but fall behind on board, and they just keep peeling counter after counter. I like that this is a way you can like maybe kill something, maybe blow up a good artifact, and loot away dead counters to try to find some of your few threats in the deck. So I think worst case, I don't see how this wouldn't be good in the Is It Dragon like draw go deck.
Yeah,
I think this card's really good. The best part is the treasure token. I got a little why you guys think it's not good, but like just getting the tempo swing, like Sibian Spirit Guide was just banned from modern, right? And standard's all about tempo. So you set them back by doing something, destroy an artifact, deal 2 damage, you create the treasure, and then you slam your dragon, make another treasure, you have 2 mana now, and blah, 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 game goes on, right? So I actually think the treasure token is one of the best parts. This is like kind of Uro without the recursion, right? Where you get to do something and then you get to ramp yourself. And when you ramp yourself, you're going to get pretty far ahead. So I think the treasure is actually pretty important here.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, we have Klondrix. This is our favorite color, Simic. And their motto is math is magic. Klondrix mages are ingenious math magicians. They study patterns, fractals, and symmetries to command power over the fundamental forces of nature. Their command is 3 CMC, 1 green and a blue. Choose to return target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. Counter target artifact or enchantment spell. Put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. Target player shuffles up to 3 target cards from the graveyard into their library.
This card's actually really good for what standard is. If there's Sultai control and all of that already running around, this is a very powerful card there. Being able to like get back any of your creature or planeswalker, obviously very wonderful. Counter it, or you know what? It's only counter an artifact or enchantment. It's not very good, but the countering an enchantment part is relevant in the standard meta when there's just nonstop sagas and Ember Cleaves, Great Henge. The third mode is, sure maybe, but the last mode is also going to be something that'll be pretty sweet. But mostly the first 2 modes are what you're gonna get out of Klondrix Command.
Yeah, I think I like this as well for a lot of the same reasons I like the Is It command in Standard, which is we got a lot of good artifacts in the format, and when you add enchantments to the mix as well, and you get Showdown of the Scalds and Doom Foretold and Elspeth Conquers Death, that makes it go up even more in value. Yeah, 3 mana is a lot for an annul, but you are getting additional value out of it. My main question for this is, where does it fit? Like, I would assume the best home would be a deck that could really take advantage of bouncing one of your opponent's things and then putting 2 counters on your creature to get in for a lot of damage. So I would like to see some sort of like Simic or Temur aggro deck almost, where you can really maximize the tempo value of it. But I don't think a deck like that exists in Standard. So I think it's powerful, but this is one where I have a hard time. Like with the Boros one, I was like, okay, that can go in the Showdown of Skull decks. With the Is It one, it's like, okay, that goes in Is It Dragon. With Klondrix, I think it's good, but what deck actually wants it? That's where I'm not 100% sure.
Well,
I think this card is terrible. I don't know what's wrong. I don't agree with anything you guys say today. Like, I don't want any of these modes. They're super conditional. And then when you do want them, like, what are the odds they all line up? Like, you're waiting to counter their artifact, and then they play an artifact. But what if you don't have a creature in your graveyard? Or not graveyard, but what if you don't have like a creature on board you want to bounce, right? So, and then, what is the point of shuffling the graveyard if Uro's not in the format, right? So,
it's so you can beat rogues, Richard.
Yeah. There it is.
Got him.
There
these
it
are
is.
also conditional, right? I barely want them, and in the perfect storm, like I don't know that I even want to cast this card. So I don't know. It seems like this was a hate card for a meta that doesn't exist, right? Like, there's some like aggro deck that you're also mid-range and you want to block their creatures while blowing them out as they Embercleave or something, but who's going to play creatures into an Embercleave? Like, I don't know, right? This is weird. This is a weird card. I don't understand what it's for.
I was just going to say, like, I do think that the bounce mode, if they added one more option to it, where or even if better, it could have just been a bigger Simic charm. I think they could have totally allowed you to bounce almost any permanent.
Oh, if it could hit lands, I would totally be in.
Like, that would make sense.
Then this would be a really powerful command. But for standard, I think this will just be a playable command. Sorry, yes, playable command.
I mean, the track record for cards like this is just so good. Like, even bad charms, when you read them and you're like, this doesn't actually look that great, they usually end up being good because people just undervalue the flexibility of cards like this. So I guess maybe I'm just naturally high on cards that have lots of options because historically, cards like that are way better than any of the individual modes actually look.
All right, next up we have a Sliver Quill. Sharp
Quill.
style.
I think it's silver, actually.
Yeah.
What would I say? Sliver?
Yeah.
Sliver, yeah.
Oh, you know what? I was thinking Slytherin this whole time, so it slipped. Silver Quill. Sharp style, sharper wit. Okay, they wield the magic of words from inspiring battle poetry to biting arcane insults. This was Orzhov. So we just beat them down with our rap battles, apparently. 2 white and a black sorcery. A sorcery command here. Choose to target creature gets +3/+3 and gains flying until end of turn. Return target creature with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yes, you heard it. It said mana value. Target player draws a card and loses 1 life. Target opponent sacrifices a creature. And mana value is basically converted mana cost.
So there's no reason why this card is sorcery, right? Like this should be instant. I think this should be instant. Like even if this were instant, it's not like it's a broken card, I don't think. However, for some odd reason, I say this because I somehow and like without even knowing, dyed my hair, did all of this, and I'm actually part of the Silver Quill house or college. So this is but definitely my favorite college that's been announced because it's the most me, I guess. But I do think that the command itself is really, really, really bad.
Ooh, I mean, it can't be really, really, really bad, right? Because it's
of
like
the commands.
Oh,
I think it's bad.
it's gonna pretty much always be a 2-for-1. Like outside of the like pump your creature thing, which I assume you like only do if it's going to be lethal essentially, and you can just like get in for lethal, maybe you choose that. But any of the bottom 3 modes, reanimate something, draw a card, lose a life, target opponent sacks a creature, no matter what order you choose those or what combination, you are getting a 2-for-1 out of it.
You are getting a 2-for-1, but I don't know if 2-for-1s are good enough.
Not we need to have 3-for-1s
like
now. We've moved on past 2-for-1s.
Yeah, 2-for-1s is a thing of like 2018, but let's talk about 2019 forward. 2-for-1, I've 2-for-1 somebody out of their mind and lost. So
That's because they 8-for-1 you with an Uro.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look at it as a 2-for-1, yes. But I think that because this is also sorcery speed and a 4-mana card, I like if this were even I don't know, even if this I guess were 5 mana, but it were instant, it would be I guess somewhat better. But the fact that it is sorcery really hurts this card. I don't know. I mean, I am just not a fan of it because it is a sorcery spell.
So I think this is the second best for command that we've talked about so far. And because I think it does what the Boros one is trying to do, but can actually do it, I think the jump on the 1 creature is probably more effective than trying to give your creatures going +1/+0. Like you don't go wide, right? Standard is like you have 1 creature, maybe 2, right? And you're trying to like chip in, and those creatures are huge, like a Love-Struck Beast, a Questing Beast, things like that, right? Or a Bone Crusher Giant. So I think that jump is pretty good, and then it's probably like jump removal, or removal, return a creature. So I actually think it's actually pretty okay-ish. Like it's like good, like better than okay, but not like crazy good. But given that I think the other two commands were terrible, this puts it at the second best command. I think it's okay. Like if you're trying to grind mid-range for whatever reason, like this could work. I think this is actually a card you would want to play if you're trying to grind mid-range.
Yeah, I also think it could be sweet in some Lurrus decks. Like if, like the Lurrus Aura style decks, it reanimates essentially anything in your deck, and you have maybe all that glitters on something where the jump mode is actually going to be like legitimately frightening. So maybe something like that could take advantage of it.
4 mana. Sorcery.
It's like 2 Elspeth activations, right? You make like a 1/1 soldier and you jump something, right? You return it to CMC and you jump something and you hope that's good enough to end the game. Last up, we have Golgari, Witherbloom. Their motto is get your hands dirty. They're biomages. They draw power from the essence of living beings, whether that means enhancing nature or exploiting it. They feel most at home riding zombie crocs, picking herbs from potions, and hanging out in the swamp making grim jokes. It's a 2 CMC sorcery. Black and green. Choose to target player mills 3 cards, then you return a land from your graveyard to your hand. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less. Target creature gets -3/-1 until end of turn. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life.
So I think this one gets a pass for being sorcery because it's so cheap. It's a 2 mana command, right? And I think this is definitely a card that gets a lot more playable the older the format. And it gets real powerful the older we go into like some formats. But yeah, like this card I like this a lot for 2 mana. This might be my favorite command out of all of them.
This is the one for me, I think, I'm probably least excited for Standard right now, at least. I know Wizards mentioned like the top mode, the self-mill mode, probably going to make more sense once we see the rest of Witherbloom from Strixhaven. Like it sounds like maybe they have a graveyard theme, so maybe that mode gets a lot more exciting once we see the rest of the set. But I think this is maybe the best command for older formats. I think the removal modes get much better in older formats compared to Standard. I guess in Standard, picking off Edgewall Innkeeper like is relevant, hitting X1s, although the -3, -1 at sorcery speed is a little weird looking because you can't really take advantage of the power decrease too much most of the time. But I think this is one that can show up in formats like Modern potentially. My only concern is we've got a lot of the Golgari 2 mana like kill stuff cards lately. Assassin's Trophy, we have Abrupt Decay. So if you want an answer in your sideboard that's going to like get rid of your opponent's hate card, we have a lot of options for that. Can Witherbloom command beat out some of those options? It does a lot of the same stuff. I like the life gain mode as a kind of like collective brutality, incidental life gain against like aggro decks. So we'll have to see, but I think this is one I'm mostly excited about for Modern and maybe like Pioneer or whatever.
Oh, and the mandatory Dredge has got a new toy. Right? Right? Like, I feel like that's just got to be said. So every time.
I mean, it mills and it gets rid of essentially everything except Leyline of the Void in terms of graveyard hate. Yep. So that is upside.
Yep. But like this has to be, it being 2 mana is so good. I think that's why it's 2 mana, and that I guess that makes up for it being sorcery. Like this being maybe instant speed, it would have been a little too powerful, but
will it show up in Jund, Richard?
Yeah.
No. Because I'm thinking collective brutality does basically like it does the 2 modes you want and more. So I think like it's just not better. Like you just really need to use that weird abrupt decay part, but like it only destroys like non-creature, non-land permanents, which like not a lot of people play, and you're trying to do it at sorcery speed. Like I don't know, what is it? What is it?
6
kill like a
dunked.
Ren and 6?
You dunk.
Who plays
Yeah.
Ren and 6?
I mean, it's Ren and 6 and hate cards pretty much, I think.
Yeah, which I don't think you really need in Jund, right? So like I think maybe if Dredge for whatever reason needs to play this to like kill a hate card and then I guess you can't kill a hate card, mill yourself, and dredge at the same time. That's 3 modes. But I guess it's a hate card, and when you don't have the hate card, you set off your dredge. So yeah, I think it's like niche cases, but I think because collective brutality exists, it's not as good.
Yeah, that's kind of my concern. Is I think it's powerful, but we've got a lot of powerful cards for Modern recently, and there are a lot of cards that are like somewhat similar to this. So I think it's good, but is it good enough to beat out the other options? That we'll have to wait and see. I think
Standard wise, though.
Would you play it in Standard, Krim? Like, when I read this, I'm like, I just don't really see it doing enough. The non-creature, non-land mode is blank-ish, I think, in Standard. It's hard for me to think of anything that'll kill. The removal is like... got him. Take that, Yarion. The removal is like kind of meh. I think it's all going to depend on that top mode being good. Like, if there is like a good self-mill deck, maybe you play this mostly for that top mode just to fill your graveyard, because we don't have like Satyr Wayfinder or whatever. So maybe if there's a Golgari graveyard deck, it'll be good. But until we see more pieces, I can't even imagine sideboarding this in Standard, honestly.
Yeah, I don't see this currently as a good card in Standard, but who knows, maybe something gets revealed and that totally changes. But this is more of something for like historic and back that I think could be pretty cool.
All right, so those are our 5 commands. Those are our 5 schools, or I guess colleges. In addition, they revealed the new showcase style for the set, which is called Mystical Archive. And the cards in Mystical Archive they revealed are Demonic Tutor, Swords to Plowshares, and Opt. Now, you find 1 Mystical Archive per set or draft booster, 3 for collector boosters. They are not standard legal, but they are legal in limited, and they are legal in historic, barring some preemptive bannings. And Demonic Tutor and Swords to Plowshares is not legal in historic,
which is funny.
So yeah, here we are, and the art style and frame is very unique. You should check them out on the site, or if you're watching on YouTube, they'll be up. But it's a unique frame and unique art. And then in addition, we have Japanese alternate art versions of the Mystical Archive, and they feature different art and a different frame, and they will come in collector boosters in all languages. So you'll be able to access them without buying Japanese products directly. And the art is very different and very sweet. So what do you guys think about the Mystical Archive and Mystical Archive Japanese versions?
Oh my gosh. So first off, I thought the art style of the Demonic Tutor normal was really cool, but then I saw the Japanese variant. I don't know if I want another Demonic Tutor outside of that. That and like Swords to Plowshares and Opt is so sweet. And like all 3 that I've seen, like so far at least, of the Japanese variants are just wow. I am completely astonished by the artwork, and I definitely need them in my life. However, the normal Opt, yeah, the regular Mystical Archive, yeah, and same with Swords, yeah. But the Demonic Tutor is sweet. It's just not as cool as the Japanese variant. However, the border is nice. I like the border. It looks super trippy.
I like all these cards, honestly. I think like the Opt you mentioned, I think it just looks worse than the Japanese version, because the Japanese versions look they're some of the coolest looking Magic cards maybe that have ever been printed. If you like different versions of cards, they look so good. I think the normal Opt, though, I think that still looks sweet in the Swords and the Demonic Tutor. So I'm super excited for this, and I'm super excited because to me this feels like masterpieces done right, sort of, where rather than getting 1 a case or 2 a case or whatever and being disappointed almost every box you opened when we had old school masterpieces, because you're kind of just like digging through your box to try to hit a masterpiece, and most boxes wouldn't have one. Now you're going to be getting 1 of these in every single pack. So worst case, you get a dud rare, you get bad uncommons. Worst case, you're at least going to get 1 super cool looking card in your pack, and that's gonna make you happy and excited, hopefully, even if the rest of your pack is a dud. So I really appreciate the 1 in every pack thing, and I think the Japanese ones they're just like so cool.
Yeah, this is the new foil. This is the new foil, I think, right? Because remember, they gave us Demonic Tutor, a mythic, right? But you're probably opening Ops because it's 1 per pack. right? So now they're cool. But later on, you're going to be like, I have so many of these, I don't care. Like how foils were initially, right? You're supposed to get a foil in every pack to make you feel good that you didn't get the chase, card in the chase mythic or rare. You got a foil. But now foils are so common, you're like, whatever, I don't care about this like foil common. So we're going to have to see what the uncommon and common mystical archives turn out to be. But they are super sweet still currently because we're not super saturated with them yet. And if you get a mythic mystical archive, then you've hit the lottery, right?
I mean, I don't think it'll be that bad. Like, sure, you're going to get a lot more ops than demonic tutors, but if you're opening a whole box, I would assume that the way rarity works, odds would be in favor of you getting a mythic or two out of your box, probably. So you're just hoping to hit the good ones. I also want to mention,
it's basically
you can buy
a masterpiece, then, right?
I mean, yeah, but you'll get rares and you'll get, I don't know. It's not as, I don't know. I can see what you're saying, but I think they just look so cool that I still want them in my collection, like compared to normal cards. So yeah, if I end up with like 50 ops, that's going to be kind of a bummer. But do I want a playset of ops? I definitely would like a playset of those ops to actually put in decks. The other thing worth mentioning is you can just buy Japanese product if you want to. Actually, on Amazon right now, you can buy Japanese set boosters for the exact same price as US or English set boosters. So if you want to make sure you're getting a bunch of the Japanese versions, yeah, the downside is all the other cards you get are also going to be in Japanese, if that's something that is a concern for you, if people can't read them or whatever. But you can get Japanese product for the same price and order it easily even from the US right now. So if you want the Japanese ones, I would definitely look into that. I think that's probably cheaper than buying a bunch of collector's boosters, although you are guaranteed, I think, multiple in collector's boosters, although I think just one is actually Japanese.
Krim, would the value of the Japanese ones go down if they're written in English? Let's say they use the frame. I guess it'd be weird to have vertical English text, but let's say they use the same frame and art, but it was actually translated in English for the English products. Would that lower the value of the product or make it better?
I mean, it would be weird to see the vertical text box, right, of the title of the card, but if this were in English, I mean, I'm doing it for the artwork, so the artwork is just way too cool. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it would a little, but like I would still want them.
Yeah, we were memeing about textless cryptic, but if you're playing like one of those kind of cards, right? Like it's basically textless, right?
Yeah.
So I found it interesting that they include like just straight up Japanese versions in collector boosters instead of just the Japanese product.
I think it'll also depend on what cards they put in it. Like so far, I think they said they're all powerful spells, so we should expect all spells. And then so far, we've seen pretty simple cards, honestly, like as far as what they do. Swords of Plowshares, you exile something, in life, opt, you scry and draw, demonic tutor, you tutor. So we'll see. It'll be interesting if there are any complex cards on the list. I wonder if Wizards would avoid that on purpose.
You don't even know what this card is, right? So normally when people play foreign cards, you recognize it from the art. If someone whipped out this demonic tutor and you've never seen it, you have no idea it's demonic tutor, right? You're just gonna guess like, what's a 2 CMC black playable spell that you would have in your deck? Because like nothing in here is legible unless you're actually Japanese and like maybe Chinese. You can read part of it, right? But it's like very hard to recognize these cards without knowing the art beforehand, right?
Does Wizards need to start putting like QR codes or something on cards so you can just like scan them and see what they do if they're going to keep printing all these weird versions?
I mean,
That's not a bad idea.
Like I think the biggest thing for me about this is actually the announcement's cool. I love all the artwork, but I think it's the legality of some of the stuff. Like, why is swords not allowed in historic?
It's too strong for historic.
How like please. There's no way that card, if anything, that's what historic needs. A Swords to Plowshares. Not Path to Exile, because you don't want to ramp. Like, I think Path to Exile actually hurts you in historic. But Swords to Plowshares would be the perfect answer for historic when it comes to problematic creatures.
This could have made historic unique, right? You cannot play swords in modern, but you can play in historic.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know why they had to preemptively ban all of this. But it's not. It doesn't seem like they care about these formats anyway. Like, why not just let them into the wild, and then if it's really broken, just ban it later?
And then they said that there's a few others, right? That are like they said the demonic tutor and the swords will not be legal. But is that it, or does that mean that there are other cards on this list that won't be legal? Because then that means they deem some of these spells maybe too powerful, which then makes me wonder what that spell could possibly be. Probably like lightning bolt.
Yeah, I think there probably will be more based on just like how they worded it. It sounded like most of them would be historic legal, but there were a few that were not. So I would expect there's at least a couple more that won't be historic legal. It's also slightly awkward on Arena, I would say, because like these cards are just not going to be legal, period, right? Like you can play them in your draft if you draft them, but if you crack open a booster pack of Strixhaven and you open a Swords to Plowshares, can't play it in Standard, can't play it in Historic, can't play it in Brawl, like it just exists in your collection and you have to scroll by it when you're building your decks. Like that is a little bit strange to me.
Oh, this is going to be, it's still going to be in Arena?
It has to be.
Yeah,
right?
These are all coming
limited
to Arena because they're in draft. Yeah, so they have to keep them in the packs to make draft the same as paper. So you're going to open a Demonic Tutor and just not be able to do anything with it.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's even worse. I thought this was going to be one of those things where they swapped it out, right, with something else.
Yeah, no, they're still going to be there. They're just going to mock you in your collection screen.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
It can't be a skin, right? Because it's a different card. So it has to be a card. It has to be in the pack. And then they've just preemptively banned them from Historic just because. So yeah, you open it and maybe you get a wild card if you're lucky, but I'm going to somehow doubt it. You're just going to get the card and then that's it.
The only good news is I was really concerned that they initially, when they did the stream, they said that these were going to replace cards of the same rarity. So if you open a pack and got Demonic Tutor, you would not get a Strixhaven rare mythic. Like that would be your rare mythic. So that's what they initially said. But after like asking about it and so forth, Wizards came out and said, no, actually they're going to replace a common. So at least that makes it a little bit better that you're not losing out on a playable card for one of these. You're just losing out on a random common, but it is still a little bit awkward. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, I don't know. I hate to think that they would make Paper Magic worse to make Arena better, but it does make me wonder a little bit, like, if Swords is too good, would it be worth just replacing that? If you have 4 cards from this Mystic Archive cycle that are just too good for Historic, would we be better off if you just replace them with something that would be okay for Historic and have everything be legal everywhere? So the set design aspect is a little bit befuddling to me.
Yeah. Wait, so you can get triple mythic in a pack now, right? You can get Mystical Archive, you can get a foil and the regular card?
In paper, yeah.
Yeah.
In paper, you'd be able to get triple mythic, technically.
Yeah. I don't know what's up with Historic. I think they should just let them in. And that would actually make Historic unique, right? Like you would actually have a very good reason to play Historic now, right? Like you can play with cards that you can't play in Modern.
And it does feel a little bit like Wizards is okay with putting any ridiculously busted threat into Historic, but when it comes to answers that are like a little bit good, they're very careful about putting anything that answers those really busted threats into the format.
Yeah, which is
I mean, the problem is you can't play any magic anymore, right? Like if you get like Fatal Push and Swords or something, like what are you going to accomplish as a creature deck now? Like absolutely nothing, right? So you're going to have to make more arrows to compete, right? Like that's the problem with power creep, right? Like there's a reason why blue and control style decks like dominated Legacy and stuff for so long, right? Because like the spells were just disproportionately too powerful. And they've been trying to correct that the other way around, right? So now our creatures are crazy powerful in relation to spells. But either way, you get an imbalanced metagame, right? Like you just one side will power creep the other side. So I don't know.
Meeting in the middle would be nice. Like, how about getting? I feel like they did just like swing a little bit too far the other direction. Like, definitely creatures were too bad and spells were too good in the early years of Magic, but I feel like they kind of like overcorrected. Like, if you're driving down a snowy road and you like turn really hard the other direction, then you fly off the road because you overcorrected. I kind of feel like that's a little bit of what happened with Wizards, like trying to improve and fix the imbalance from the early years. They went a little bit too far towards the making the threats good and a little bit too safe with the spells. But maybe we're heading back to a I don't know, to a place where we'll have some sort of balance between the two sides.
Balance? What?
Like literal, yeah, balance in historic, please. I would. Oh my goodness, I would play so much historic if I could balance people or even restore balance people. I'd even accept that.
Yeah. Okay. No.
Do we have Cascade cards? Okay. So yeah, those are the promos. That's Mystical Archive, and I think that's it for Strixhaven because we're supposed to be going into Time Spiral Remastered previews. With the schedule that Wizards set out. So put this aside and we'll check back in towards the end of March and April where I guess previews will pick up again. And a reminder, this is the commander set of the year. So they will have commander decks for each of the colleges, full-blown 100-card decks. So this will be the
31 new cards or something?
I don't have the exact number.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number either. I think this is Commander 2022, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of like how Ikoria was last year. The actual Commander decks for the year were kind of tied to the set. So I think that's what's happening with Strixhaven. Like, this is the big batch, the Commander 2022. So should be some pretty powerful decks, hopefully. Anyway, we didn't get to fish mail last week. I think that's all of our Strixhaven stuff. So let's spend a few minutes getting to everyone's questions.
Wait, Seth. Let me insert a fish mail because we forgot. Okay. From Richard, he asks, what do you guys think about mana values, the new word for converted mana cost?
Oh, man, I forgot all about this too. All right, so I think that the intentions of the change are good. Converted mana cost, it's a little bit long. It's not all that clear if you're a new player. So I think the idea of simplifying it, I think that's a really good idea, and I'm totally on board with that. At the same time, I do wonder a little bit if mana cost wouldn't have been better than mana value. Like, it achieves the same goal of making it shorter and simpler, and value, I think, is a little weird to me just because I think a value is subjective. Like, value is whatever amount of value someone places on something rather than being objective, when mana cost feels a little bit more objective to me. So I like what they're trying to do, although I think I would have preferred mana cost to mana value if I had the choice.
I don't care enough. I think that value is fine. I think value, it makes, yeah, I don't know, maybe I see the change, right, to make it simpler. And for me, it doesn't affect me either way. So I'm trying to think about it from the perspective of like somebody that just gets into the game. And like converted mana cost, I don't know, that's a lot, right? That's just a lot. And I think like the idea of like mana value seems more like a concept I could grasp if I'm a new player.
Yeah, I like the wording. So the reason they need to make this change is like, what is the CMC of a split card? You add them together. You're like, well, how is that the converted mana cost, right? What is the converted mana cost of an Eldraine like storybook card or adventure card? So I think when you say converted mana cost, it means something. So they're just going to replace it with a generic term mana value, and then they can assign whatever rules they want to the cards. So I think it really is for things like the split cards. So I think this is fine.
I also think I'm going to say it wrong for the next 6 months at least. So
what are you gonna call it as? Converted mana cost?
I'm still probably going to say CMC or like convert. Like I've said that so many times for so many years. Even though I think CMC will live over to mana value
forever. And in the wikis, you'll see CMC means mana value. And people are like, how does CMC equal mana value? Right? Kind of like mill, right? Like, anyone know what millstone actually does? Like, I bet you a lot of the players don't know what that means, but they know what the word mill means, right? So I think we will use CMC for a long time going forward.
Telling you.
It's going to be MV now.
MV. Motion value.
You can say that, though. You can say, I've played Magic back when it was still converted mana costs.
Oh, it's going to be the new damage on the stack that you have the old timers 10 years from now. Back in my day.
I mean, it changes a lot of cards.
Converted mana costs.
Right? A lot of old cards reference converted mana costs. When they get reprinted, the Oracle will be different. For the purists,
that is true.
There, especially when we talk about Time Spiral Remastered and the old frames, they're going to say mana value in them.
I think it's still a good change, though. Like, I think overall, little things like that don't actually water down gameplay, but can make the game more accessible for new players, I'm on board with that.
All right.
Anyway,
Back to
Fish mail?
fish mail. So if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air. Gregory Emin, not to be contrary, but why is everyone up in arms about Exile recently? I feel like it hasn't changed much at all. Using the old wording, cards are either set aside or removed from the game. That's just Exile now. Is it a big change?
Is it a big change? I don't know about big change. I think it's weird. Like, I don't know.
Wait, what's the context
traditionally,
of this? Is it the old bordered cards or the mana values discussion? Like, why is Exile a big deal?
I think it's more that we keep getting more and more stuff that does stuff from Exile, casting stuff from Exile, etc. When years ago, Exile was like it was gone. Like once it went to Exile, it was done for the rest of the game. Now that's not really true anymore. We have lots of mechanics that work in Exile, and stuff comes in and out of Exile just like it comes in and out of the graveyard, or close to how the graveyard works. So, I mean, I think it's a change, but is it a bad thing? I don't know. I do sometimes wish that there was a place where you could just get rid of a card forever, and you had no worries about it ever coming back.
Mega Exile,
but,
Mythic Exile.
Yes, we need Mega. We need Mega Exile.
Yeah, Mega Exile is a thing, right? Isn't that what we were talking about last time? I mean, Mega Exile. That's got to be the next zone. That's the new zone.
At the same time, Wizards has made 27 years of Magic cards, and they made a ton of mechanics, and they've done probably everything you can do with the graveyard. So it would also make sense to me why Wizards would keep looking for new places to explore. So you're not just rehashing, slight tweaks on the same things you've done a million times before. And Exile was a pretty untapped zone until the last few years when it didn't do anything. That's just where creatures went cards went until they were gone forever. So I could see why Wizards is heading that direction, because it does open up a lot of like cool new design space that wouldn't exist if you couldn't interact with Exile at all.
I don't like Exile. I mean, the fact that it's just another graveyard, it's just another zone, right? I would like to see a place where things go and just never come back. But yeah, I mean, it's just a second graveyard nowadays, so I don't know. And they're pretty big on like these zones that are untouchable, right? Like grabbing from outside the game. That's also like outside the game is also another zone, which probably is Exile, right? Like, so yeah, I don't know about this. And then we also have the emblem, right? Soon enough, we'll be able to interact with emblems, is my guess.
I hope not.
Like they got to explore new spaces, right? So they got to do something with them.
We need a Doomblade that lets you rip the creature it targets in half. Just done.
Yeah.
Well, that's Mega Exile. Like, not only can you not use it the rest of this game, it's done forever. It is ripped in half.
And then you call the judge, and they can come over, and then they DQ the person for not having the appropriate cards. So if that creature or that Doomblade actually just ends the player's tournament.
Okay. Also related to this, from Antonio Slusars. Considering the amount of exile effects in Magic, is it time to create an ability that prevents creatures from leaving the battlefield exiled? Thoughts?
Ooh, like protection from exile, essentially? Yeah?
Well, I think that wouldn't that just be the same as... Well,
so you have Indestructible, which prevents your creature from going to the graveyard. So
right.
Can we make Mega Indestructible that prevents yourself from being exiled?
Just Mega everything. Let's go.
I think we've already had that. I think like Aetherios, the box topper, like doesn't the creature you put the coin on, whether it goes to exile or whatever, like I think you can get around just like whenever this leaves the battlefield, return it to player or whatever. So I think we already kind of have it. Wizards just doesn't use it very much.
Like that in like Kaya's ghost form, right?
Kaya's ghost form. I think Kroll has text that says whenever an equipped creature gets destroyed or exiled, return it to your hand. So we've seen steps in that direction. I would actually like to see the opposite, where I think we're getting to the point where maybe we need exile hate. Like maybe we need a Grafdigger's Cage for the exile zone. Like cards in exile cannot leave exile or whatever.
Is there anything that's like even that bad though?
Food chain. I don't know, like what actually, so like not a lot of stuff leaves exile, right? We have Mist Hollow Griffin, we have Eldrazi Processors, We have things like
well,
Carnifex.
Technically, adventures go to Exile. You have
those go to can you process an adventure?
Yes.
You can.
100%.
Whoa, that's wild.
Or maybe just like exchange your Exile Zone with your graveyard. Maybe that would be a cool hate card. Like your graveyard goes to Exile and whatever is Exile goes to the graveyard.
Don't give Wizards ideas. I don't like protection from Exile though. Like if your opponent gives creatures indestructible, the answer is to mass Exile. And if they give them like Exile protection, then it's awkward, right? And then it's just basically Exile literally is a graveyard now if you can protect from Exile as well. So I think holding on to it so they're slightly different is fine. From Vayvale, I heard some people would like to see combo decks back in Pioneer. What are your thoughts about this? I really like Ballista in the format. Don't you think it'd be better to ban Heliod and unban Ballista instead?
I like combo decks, but I don't like combo decks being the best decks in the meta in a format like Pioneer, just because Pioneer lacks the tools to stop them. Like in a format like Legacy, or even Modern is heading this direction a little bit, you have the tools to stop them. In Pioneer, I feel like you just don't have good enough interaction to stop fast combo decks, so I would like to see combo decks be playable, but I'm much more comfortable with them being like tier 2, tier 2.5, tier 3, rather than looking at the Pioneer meta and be like, oh my god, like the 4 best decks in the format are all combo decks. Like that sounds pretty miserable to me.
Yeah, I would definitely like that's probably another reason why I'm I don't touch a few of the older formats, because even though the things are there to answer them, I just don't like playing against combo, to be honest with you. But yeah, I don't know.
I'm fine with like creature-based combos that don't involve indestructibility. So you can actually interact. Like Splinter Twin, I think, is like a really good quote-unquote combo deck where if you're playing a normal game of Magic, you can still interact with them. And you don't need to like interact on the stack. Because if you interact on the stack, like only a certain color can do it, right? All other colors cannot. So you can't really play normal Magic anymore, but every color should be able to interact with the board. So combos involving like the board, I think, are fine.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
As far as Walking Ballista, I'm pretty happy that it's gone. I think that it's a really powerful card. And I think Heliod is more fun. Heliod opens up the possibility of some sort of like, life-gainy Soul Sisters type deck, while Walking Ballista is just a card that would see playing a ton of different archetypes because it's just really strong just on rate, essentially.
All right. Last question. Albert Lund. I want to brew green-black rock with Seraph Realm Eater, but I don't have the wild cards. My vision includes Vorinclex. Saffron Olive, are you willing to act as a proxy and brew this bad boy? Rock tile style decks in Standard. What do you think?
That actually sounds sweet. I mean, I do love Vorinclex decks, and I think that could be interesting. Yeah, I mean, no promises on how quickly or when it'll happen, but that's an idea that's interesting enough that I could see working on it and doing a video or a stream with it. So stay tuned. Maybe at some point in the future we'll have some wolf action in Standard with Vorinclex.
All right, and that wraps up our fish mail for this week. So if you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 317 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about Time Star Remastered spoilers and whatever else goes down in the world of Magic. So, until then, everyone, have a wonderful week. And this is the crew signing out.